Hello.
Hello,
Hello. Hello.
hello, hello.
Hello. It is our pleasure, as always, to be here and to talk to you, all of you, about whatever it is that you're wanting. And it is our understanding that you have particular things in which you are wanting to ask. And so, what is it?
Hi, Raphael. Well, the first question that we have on the docket is when will this intense energy on the planet lift?
You are very funny. It will not lift. It's going to intensify more and more and more. And that doesn't have to be something that you look at or that you label as something bad. But it is that the acceleration on the planet continues to move at a very rapid pace, and the vibration is accelerating, which is extremely important and needed at this time for the evolution of all of you and for the planet as a whole. It's going to continue to intensify. Now, the need to feel the intensity in a way in which you may label as something negative will begin to diminish depending upon your ability to adapt to the higher frequencies. And your ability to adapt to the higher frequencies depends upon your willingness to open up space to higher aspects of yourself. Many of you might call that your higher self, and to be more attuned to it, and to be taking time and to be working diligently on the energies that may be arising that are still in pockets of deep density, that are much heavier, that are still needing to be seen, heard, and loved, so that they may be released. For the intensity in which you are feeling are any frequencies that are still residing within your being that are not able to match the higher frequencies that are coming in. And so in the question in which you're asking, often you're saying, well, when will the intensity release itself? Well, the intensity is not going anywhere, but your ability to adapt to the intensity, meaning a willingness to allow the energies that cannot match it, that are denser than this intensity. The word intensity perhaps might not be the word which we would use, because it is not so much that it's only intense when you can't match the higher vibration. So the question might in hand actually be, when will the higher frequencies stop coming in? Well, they won't. They're going to continue to come in at a rapid pace and continue to accelerate and continue to move very quickly. And dependent upon how intense they feel to you is how much you are allowing and are willing to let go of resistance. Anything that you're resisting in lower quadrants of your energetic field that you are not perhaps wanting to look at or to make a shift or to change, they will begin to be rocked, or you'll start to feel fragmented energy. It might come up as anger or rage or moodiness or a difficulty sleeping. It may show up in physicality in the body, or an emotional unstable or deep depression, or an inability to take action or to feel stuck. All of these things are what we might label as symptoms to parts of self in which you're resisting allowing to be lifted into a higher frequency, for them to come up, to begin to match. In order to do that, it requires going within. It requires looking at those parts and releasing the grip that you have on them, because you are familiar with them, you are comfortable in them, and it is a willingness to take the grip off, to take the gloves off, and to be in the vulnerability, in the nakedness of who you are, with a willingness to, with unapology, look at whatever is needed. And in doing that, then it begins to match the higher frequencies that are already here vibrating on the planet, and that feeling of intensity begins to lessen or subside.
Hmm. So, how do we get naked, metaphorically? you know?
It is a willingness to take a look at programming, because what's happening, and even when you look at perhaps the energies that are coming in, and you've got this solar eclipse happening, and in some respects, it's like there's always a new eclipse or another moon or another intense energy, but those are always opportunities for you to take a look, because you feel the intensity, because you're connected astrologically to all things in the universe. And so you are participating in the energy and the movement that's happening. And the nakedness in that is a willingness to be vulnerable, to take a look at and not to push under the rug, in a sense, or perhaps that in which is seeking your attention, to for you to heal or to love or to address. And we were talking about this with Kelly earlier today, because sometimes we recognize that from your perspective, that often we have things to say that are not always that easy to implement, because we're in the angelic realm and we're not human, right? And so sometimes we're forgetting, or Kelly says you're forgetting the difficulties of actually being incarnated in body, and what it is like to be here, where you are always saying to be a loving witness and to just be the observer of what is. And yet when you're in relationships or situations that perhaps are triggering you, or whatever is coming up, those are opportunities to be vulnerable, to be naked, not to close it down, to restrict, to put it away, but to open it up. And sometimes it might feel like you're opening Pandora's box and you're afraid to open it because you don't want to look at it. But it is in the willingness to be naked, in the sense to look at that behind the scenes, behind the clothing, to look behind the curtains at the reality of truth. And when we're talking about truth, we're talking about that the part of the intensity of the energy that is arising now is that the clothes are coming off, the curtains are coming down, and there is more ability to see clearly things that perhaps were behind the scenes before, that weren't seen, that you didn't pay attention to because you were walking in closed corridors, going about your business. But now as the walls begin to fall away, meaning the paradigm of control of belief systems that have been implemented for so long, that have been part of who you knew to be, begin to crumble, there's a sense of insecurity, a sense of vulnerability. And it is, instead of building up new walls in order to make you feel what you perhaps call safe, it is a willingness to be naked in the wind without the walls, and to know that you are safe in that, in the vulnerability, that you are also safe, that the protection in the way that you perceived the world before was that you needed something outside of yourself, an idea, an ideology, or a system, or a belief, or way of being, to keep you protected, to keep you safe, to know predictability of what will be coming next and what you expect. And all of those things are shifting and crumbling. And so you don't have a clear compass necessarily in knowing where you're going or how things will be or unfold. And that's that naked vulnerability energy. But in that, instead of seeking sovereignty or seeking protection, perhaps is the right word, we don't mean sovereignty, outside of self, you begin to recognize that the safety that you are looking for resides within, that it dwells within you, and that you are always safe because you are an infinite and divine being, and that there is actually nothing that can hurt you. And you might say, well, of course something can hurt me. Well, perhaps in the physicality of the body you are in temporarily, you may feel physical pain or emotional pain or suffering, but it is that you actually cannot be destroyed nor hurt, because you are infinite. It is a piece along the process of a journey, and in the willingness to surrender to it rather than to resist it, you move through it at a much faster rate. So perhaps we're forgetting the question.
Well, so the two things that come up for me as we just elaborate and dig deeper a little bit on this question is, number one, sometimes I've talked to a lot of people and even myself where we're constantly seeking, what is it? What is it? What is the Pandora's box? And we're trying to find what's under the rug. We're not trying to avoid it, but it feels like we can never find it, but we know that we don't know that it's there, but we feel like something is, but we cannot find it. What do we do about that?
Well, that's a continuous searching for a part of your divinity. But rather than searching for it, it is coming to the conclusion and the knowing that it is you, that you are it, that there is nothing you have to find, but that you have to be with what is. That's part of the vulnerability, without having to seek something outside of yourself to fix it or to make it better, but to be present in it, in the knowing that you are all of it, instead of looking for it. So it is in the presence of it that you move through whatever it is that you think you're seeking to find, because you already are those things. So perhaps it is, when we talk about Pandora's box, we talk about a willingness to go deep within and to see the light that resides in there, and to know that it was always and has been lit and there from the beginning, that is nothing you have to do to it, but a willingness to recognize that it already is. But there is a perpetual need from ego to continue to search somewhere outside of self for gratification, for answers, for solutions, and that in that you will find whatever it is that you are seeking, which ultimately what you're really seeking, even though you may not recognize it, is your own divinity. But you cannot find it looking for it outside of who you are, because it is who you are. You already are it. So you're looking for something in which you're sitting in. You're seeking it, but it is you. And so when you begin to recognize that it is not something separate from you to find, but that it is a part of you because it is all you, then that need for the search begins to fall away, because you can't look for something that is you. It's like looking for yourself.
Mm-hmm. What and what I was getting at a little bit there was kind of like when people overanalyze a little bit within inside of themselves.
Yes. Well, of course, that's the mind and the ego, and you're all very familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a perpetual need of continuous thinking to find an answer that somehow then, when you find it, you will be happy.
Mm.
But there's never you'll never be happy looking for that which you think will make you happy outside of self, because in the human experience there is an unraveling or a continuing process and evolution of experiences that are always unfolding and shifting and changing, and it is how you are within those experiences that is how determines how it is that you are feeling. And so there is this idea that when I have this job, or I have this car, or I have this marriage, or I have these children, or I have this money, or I have whatever, that then you will be happy. And then when you have that, you say the next thing, and then you will be happy, and then you will be happy. Well, of course, you never will be happy when you are searching and seeking from something outside of self to make you happy. And yet it is that you cannot even find that in which your thinking will make you happy by looking for it to make you happy. It is being happy with where it is that you are, that the thing you're actually searching for in order to make you happy can rise up and appear, because you are then innately already vibrating with the vibration of happiness, and those things that are in alignment with that vibration are automatically begin to magnetize to yourself. It's all a mirror. We were showing that to Kelly today, and that she had been away for a few days, and where was it she was, the energy was very chaotic, and even the space, the dwelling, had dysfunction and boxes and disorganization. And when she came home, there was this great sense of serenity and peace in the space of her home. And there was a recognizing, as we were reminding her, that the internal self and the external self often reflect one another. The state of your space outside of self and the state internally are reflecting one another. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that you always have to be neat and everything has to be in place and perfect. Of course not, because there's creative life force and energy and movement and change. But there is something, and many of the great wise teachers will, or those who are in sanctuaries or temples or monasteries will keep things simple and serene. And they will also take time to take care of their things and wash them and care for themselves and what they own. And they put things gently and in different places. And they have perhaps just one flower or something, but it is a reminder of the simplicity and yet the beauty of life. And it is a reflection of the internal and the external mirroring one another. And so, although one might not say, well, it's not that important, the external of your home or your space, right? Because that's the material, but you see, it is a reflection of how you are internally. And so it is important to care for your body, to care for your things, to care for your food, to sit and eat your meal, to make a sense of sacredness around that. And those old traditions that perhaps you have moved away from over time were there to have had value, in that they were mirroring and very much an integral part of your internal emotional state and your external experience and environment. And so it's all reflective, everything. It is a fractal pattern of mirrored refractal energies that are showing you opportunities and areas for a sense of a willingness to bring things back into balance.
Thank you, Raphael. So the next question is about this solar eclipse and everything like that. And you mentioned that all of these events are opportunities, but what is the effect of the solar eclipse on the world? And this question, this person asking is saying, especially the USA.
Well, it is that it's affecting a willingness to see in a new way. And the ultimate energy and vibration around this is a willingness to align with truth and to speak your truth. Now, you may hear from many other teachers and other beings a different way that they are connecting and interpreting this energy and vibration, but we see it deeply rooted and connected to the throat. And a willingness to utilize the sound and the vibration and geometry of the throat to open up portals, stargates, and vibrations into other worlds of creation. And the solar eclipse is activating that. And so you might find that you're yelling some more at people, or you might find that you're more quiet right now and internal, but there may be a shift energetically in your throat and in a willingness to speak your truth or not to speak your truth or to hear things in different ways. But this energy right now is about utilizing the spoken word and honoring the word in the intent of it, and seeing each sound and syllable and vibration as sacred, in knowing that it is has a great catapulted momentum of energy toward creation at this time. And the solar eclipse is spinning energy that is moving through, in and around the entire system of the body, but particularly around the throat center in the revealing of truth. And you might see that begin to play out collectively, where new ideas and new ways of seeing will start to reveal themselves. But at the same time, it is very much on a personal level about you speaking the truth to others, and particularly speaking the truth to yourself in asking questions to yourself, such as, what is my truth around something? And realizing that any answer that you are looking for about anything in your life, that you have the answer, that you don't need to find it somewhere else, and a willingness to get your throat chakra moving and spinning, that you can allow the sound to come up and the words to be articulated to speak your truth, and then to honor what that is and to take action to move forward. And so this energy is a momentum pushing you into aligning with what your truth is, without apology about how another may perceive what your truth is. And so relationships may come into question, ideologies may come into questions, things that you have thought and believed always to be true, you may begin to question. The intent around what it is that you're wanting to bring forward or create may begin to shift, and the power of your word comes into play, utilizing it to propel you forward into a higher frequency.
Well, it sounds like a good time to get in touch with the throat chakras, huh?
Yes.
So another question that someone asked, which is interesting, I don't know who asked it, but they say, can you offer insight to the messages coming in from respected teachers saying that millions upon millions are going to die? What are these teachers conjuring up this timeline?
Well, it is that there's always people dying, right? That's part of the process. Now, will there be a large exit strategy for some who will want to be on the other side in order to support the evolution of humanity? Potentially. But it is of no importance nor need to say that, or to put that into the holographic field and the electrons to begin spinning that up into the creation force of a particular timeline. And any great sage or teacher would recognize that predicting such a thing is not in alignment with truth, because not individually and collectively, you're always operating through free will. There are continuous, multiple, and infinite timelines occurring at any moment. And yes, there can be one divergence of energy moving at a rapid pace toward a particular one that has a higher, perhaps, percentage of unfolding. And yet, it is that in giving it energy of any kind, it is more likely to occur. And so we are never, from our perspective in the angelic realm, and I, as Archangel Raphael, in the business of predicting such things, nor would we. And we recommend that your energy don't go to such thoughts. But if that is to be the timeline, if that is to occur, you must recognize and know that it would be occurring for the highest good of the collective, and that any souls participating in that would have agreed to do so in order to create more momentum to the rising of the consciousness. However, there is no need to put that energy there, nor is it to continue looking and searching from different beings what they think will happen in the future. This constant, well, what's going to happen all the time? What's going to happen is whatever you choose is going to happen. And so when you give your power over to someone else who is, they get to choose what's going to happen. And then when you all listen to them and you all collectively agree upon it, well, of course it happens. And so you are the creator of your experience. That's sort of like law number one, kind of a very basic one. And you're creating together, and you can choose to create heaven on earth collectively if you're wanting, but that would require that you take responsibility for your intention, for your place of attention and your intention both, where you put your attention, what you choose to look at, what you choose to engage in, what you choose to listen to, and what you intend the future to be, rather than being caught in fear and anxiety and that lots of people will die or that something horrible is going to happen or whatever that may be. Then you as a powerful being are beginning to align with that timeline, and that timeline may then unfold in your experience, and that may perhaps be your choice and part of your experience, but that does not mean that it is the collective experience. You see, there is some misunderstanding that just like right now, there are billions of you having different experiences all over the planet. And some are filled with joy and bliss, and some are filled with deep pain and suffering, and some in between, and you fluctuate back and forth, but you are having your experience. And there are multiple beings having a certain experience or timeline for the collective consciousness that is playing itself out, that you are completely and fully unaware of, because you're not aligning with a particular vibration in which they are, and that is not in your experience whatsoever. And it seems completely foreign or alien to you because you're not vibrating at that place. And so there, it is impossible to predict the future or to say a particular timeline is going to happen, because it may happen, but for who? And what consciousness is aligned with that? Even if it is happening, it may not be something that you have any awareness of, because you're not vibrating at that frequency, that bandwidth. And so it's not ever even in your experience. But does it mean it's not occurring? It's occurring perhaps multidimensionally somewhere. Everything that you can perhaps think of or put attention to or know or bring or conjure up even in your imagination to be has already occurred somewhere on some timeline at some point, and has been recorded in that and is in the Akashic records, in which you have access to, and you can begin to vibrate with it, and it can become your reality very quickly. Now, part of this solar eclipse and the intensity of the energy, and as it continues to elevate and accelerate over time, it will be that the power of your intention, the power of your word, the power of your thought will become more expanded. It will magnetize, it will match that frequency in which you're placing your attention on much faster. You will be manifesting almost instantaneously. That's why you're in a school right now of learning about it, so that you can learn to manage and have conscious awareness around your beliefs, your thoughts, your words, your intentions, so that when the vibration accelerates even more in a quantum leap, which it shall do over time, you will be at a new state of consciousness that you will be manifesting in instantaneously. And so it will all be dependent upon the level of your consciousness will mirror your experience. Now, it's already doing that, but there it will be moving it in a more accelerated rate.
Thank you, Raphael. So kind of similar to what we've been talking about, another question, and let me read the whole question. It's a little long, but it basically goes, how can we make our heart as light as a feather and maintain this? I feel like I have felt this briefly, but I cannot seem to master it. For many years, think I was disconnected from my heart. I prayed to God to help me, but didn't feel anything really change much. I'm trying to parse out and correct my thoughts and therefore emotions, as I believe these are crucial elements. I have quite the imagination, and in most scenarios without enough info, I will think the worst. Then I realize I'm doing it and chastise myself for it. Then I realize I've done that and cancel and backtrack. The monkey has turned into a mean gorilla. So I guess this person is asking what to do, as they feel like they know what to do, but they keep trying, but they can't seem to break the beliefs and the patterns of falling into negativity.
Yes, it's a process. The chastising part is what will spiral you backwards. The self-criticism is what will spiral you back into the negative thinking. If you can begin to recognize self-criticism as it is presenting itself, and nip that in a sense in the bud with the willingness to love yourself where it is that you are in a compassionate way, you will make quantum leaps in the lightning of the heart. Because it is that it's all a process that you're not jumping from being in a deep sense of separation to complete unity consciousness, and then when you fall back into separation for a moment, you begin to criticize yourself. That just holds you longer there. So it is a willingness to know that it is a process, that you are evolving, and that you have been embedded and conditioned and programmed to believe that you are separate from everything and everything is separate from you. And so it is that the lightness of the heart occurs in the union with your higher self, in the union with the divine, which is you, and the remembering of unity and of love. And one of the ways to find that is not to look for it outside of self, but to begin to breathe through the heart, to begin to communicate through the heart, to spend time in the heart, to meditate and go into the chambers of the heart, to recognize it as a breathing, living, live organism and brain and electromagnetic field, and to begin to make choices and decisions from the heart. And as you begin to make the heart the driver of your experience or the number one priority of your reality, and as many of you know, what is associated with the heart, what is the heart connected to? The vibration of love. And the vibration of love is the highest frequency in the human experience. And as you move into the heart, you begin to radiate and to become, and you be love. But you cannot be love or act in the vibration of love or know love for others if you do not have love for yourself. So the mechanism of when the cycle continues to perpetuate itself and the self-criticism arises, a willingness to stop, to even place your hand on your heart and just say, it's okay, and I love you. I love you. And to look in the mirror and say, I love you, and to be gentle with yourself and compassionate. And it is in the willingness to do that and to begin to stop the energetic flow of the self-criticism with replacing it with self-love, then you'll begin to open up more space in the heart, and you'll start to feel that lightness and begin to accelerate your frequency. It is this willingness to release self-criticism that is crucial in the development of your experience.
Thank you, Raphael. And self-criticism kind of brings us to this next question, which I think is important. So somebody asked, help me understand why Raphael says we should not commit suicide. This does not feel like a loving answer when I am suffering so much. If I commit suicide, will I have a start over? When will the pain end?
Well, it is that the body can experience suffering, and the emotional and the mental body can have great anguish, in which sometimes there is this feeling that the only way to end that anguish is to release the suffering. And to release the suffering is to exit the body. And when you exit the body, or what you call death, you expand and you move and you soar into the oneness, and there's this great remembering. And so of course it's very inviting, and it's something in which many would want to do. We recognize that. And yet it is that from the soul perspective, that in which you are needing to overcome in a particular lifetime is something in which you carry with you and continue to do. So if you can find ways to relieve the suffering without taking the physicality of the life, then the perpetuation of that loving energy of oneness in which you're wanting to move into is a state in which you can enjoy and experience, knowing that you have not made a spiritual bypass. And so the avenue, and although it may not appear this way, to release emotional and mental suffering is through stillness of the mind. You might call it meditation. And it is a willingness to be there for long periods of time regularly as that space begins to expand. And it may start with having a second where you feel a sense where the mind has still completely, and you've moved into that space of bliss. And in that moment there, the suffering deceases. It's not there. And then if you can expand that second to a second and a half or to 2 seconds, and if you can keep having the discipline to sit in meditation and come back there, you can keep expanding the awareness to a minute, to 2, to 20, to an hour, in which you are sitting and you're still in the body, but you're not of the body. And the suffering is no longer present, because the suffering is always in relationship to the resistance of what is. But you cannot be in resistance to what is if you're in the space of the now and the presence of the nothingness, which is everything. And so from that perspective, there is no suffering, because you're at peace with where you are. And as you keep expanding that, then you move into a higher octave of consciousness, and that in which you had been looking at as the thing that was creating the anguish and the suffering, which is often a relationship to a particular idea or circumstances in which you found yourself in, you begin to vibrate yourself out of that, and you begin to vibrate into something else. And that which you had labeled as the thing creating the suffering is no longer in your experience. And you're able to maintain an ability to have an awareness still in the body. And then joy becomes a part of your experience. And you begin to laugh, and you begin to feel bliss and light. And from there, the need to exit the body is no longer even a part of your thought process. And so many of you have said, well, I have said to you that if you commit suicide, that then you have to do it again and there's no point in it. And I want to reiterate that you had said, well, that's not a very loving thing for an angel to say. But you see, it is that we see it from such a grander perspective, because you're infinite, and it seems in the moment of the suffering that it is endless. But it is in the willingness to go inside, to travel inward into the stillness, that the suffering that you're seeking to get by leaving the body, that you can find in the body. And then when you actually do leave the body, you are able then to move to a new vibration, to have a different experience, rather than to have to experience again in order to release the suffering. And so you can bypass it if you want, but we want you to know it's a temporary bypass, because ultimately you still have to move up the rung of vibration. And so it is a free will. You have a choice of how you want to go about it. And there is no judgment. I want you to know that you are unconditionally loved in your choice, that there is not judgment, but that which you think that you are being released of, that which you think that is solving your problem, we can just tell you from our perspective, it's not the end game.
Thank you, Raphael. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I know a lot of the people that listen to these calls identify as empaths. So I'm going to ask this question, because that also might relate to the last question a little bit, of why there's so much suffering. It's hard. So this person asks, I work hard at not taking responsibility for other people's emotions and behaviors, but at times I feel as though I adopt another person's energy without really wanting to, even to the point of feeling their illness, issues, or stored body memories within their own body. Is this real? Am I making it up? Is there a simple way to consciously draw a more effective energetic boundary in relation to another person's energetic field? Can I effectively release their energy from my own field?
Yes. Well, first of all, you're not making it up. As you accelerate your vibration, you start to expand your energetic field, and it's like a soup, and it can move and bump into others, and it can mix. But that is why it is very important to be grounded and to have boundaries. Energetic boundaries are critical in that you hold your space and you stand in your power. When you're an empath to the point of it creating suffering in your own body, it means that you do not honor yourself and boundaries, and you're an overpleaser, meaning that energetically, whether you're aware of it or not, you on some level feel as though you are a hero or a saver, or you're an ultimate giver, to the point of detriment to self. That is what we would call a deep imbalance in the divine feminine, that you give to the point of self-sacrifice, and it can be very unconscious. Now, we're not labeling that or judging one for that, for it is very common, and it is because you have accelerated your vibration so much that you are so open and open-hearted and connected to the higher realms. But there has to be a balance, because you are operating in the third dimension of owning and your sense of self, your sense of sovereignty, your sense of power, and an energetic boundary in the light moving up through and in and around you, and then making a conscious intent and choice, if you're wanting to open that energetic space, if you want to feel another person's pain, have empathy, send them energy, do healing on them or help them. All of those things are honorable things to do. But when you're doing it without recognizing it, that means that your boundaries are down, that your energy is seeping out, and this will create, it means you have energetic holes in your auric field, and you can get in other people's business, in other people's vibration. You can feel sick, you can feel exhausted, you can feel an inability to focus, all of these things. And so it is important to wake up in the morning, to go outside, to get your feet on the earth, to ground into the earth and to the soil if possible, to intend that an energetic field of protection that is coming up all the way to the top, especially at the crown and at the back of the head, comes up and is sealed around you, and that you are moving in a sphere of golden light that is yours, and that you stand in a sense of knowing and of truth, authenticity, and power of who you are, with an understanding that you are moving and that other energies are just bouncing off of you. They are not and cannot infiltrate or move through your field, that you are clear in the energetic field that you carry and who it is that you are, where you're going. And then if you want to help another, you can make a conscious decision. I'm going to open up a space for them, or I'm going to invite them perhaps into my space, or I'm going to open up space to allow energy that I have maintained at a high octave to support them and give to them. It's that old saying, you have to have a full cup before you can give, right? You to put on your own oxygen mask first. And so when you're feeling everyone else's energy, it means you're not taking care of yourself, that you're not honoring yourself enough for a disciplined practice to contain your energy.
Thank you so much, Raphael. And I think that the last question for tonight, because that was a phenomenal answer, would be about the butterflies. Somebody here said that in the West, the population of the majestic butterfly is down 99%. And while I fully understand the human issues that are causing this iconic butterfly to disappear, what soul message does the butterfly itself have to say?
Well, the butterflies are just fine. They have ascended into the higher dimension. They are already fluttering about in the fifth dimension, and they are symbolic of transmutation. They are symbolic of so many things. They are looked upon in many ideologies or religions and spirituality as transmuting and giving birth to something new, right? They are awakened beings that are flying about. And so they have already are transitioned into a higher octave, a higher vibration. And we recognize that from your perspective where you are, there's a great loss, but it's not a complete loss, for you will merge with them again as you move into these higher frequencies. We recognize that that's perhaps hard to grasp. And it is also true for many of the extinct animals. They they are at a higher vibration, and they cannot maintain um, life in the density of the soup of the dimension in which you're still residing in. It's too difficult for them, and their ecosystem and the way in which they operate and how everything is interrelated and connected is no longer functioning for them. So they've ascended into a higher octave. Now, it is that they will return in cycles. It is not the end, for they will come back as they upgrade themselves and their DNA to a higher vibration. They will return with messages and beauty and become in your experience again, for they are not lost in this dimension. They will come back. But right now, most of them are operating in a new frequency. And some of you may have a sight of one or two, meaning that you are also vibrating in that place. You might call it heaven on earth. And heaven on earth looks so beautiful, where you look out at the sea and you see how beautiful and clean it is as the dolphins jump and swim, and the butterflies are all around, and you hear the rustling of the leaves and the blooming of the flowers, and the animals are alive, and the fairies and the divas and the beings of light and the angels and the masters and the things that you have forgotten about and lost all are alive like a fairy tale. And that energy in that place, that dwelling, is already something that's happening. And you will have what we call moments of being there, where you'll look out at something and you'll say, this is the fifth dimension. This is heaven on earth. And it may be fleeting. It might just be for a moment where you pass through energetically a space into it, and then you come back out. Just like the question about the heart and feeling the lightness in the heart, you can experience it for a little part of time, but then you drop back into the lower frequencies. Well, it's the same as the intensity, as these energies you are feeling continue to accelerate. You will be accelerating with them as you're dropping density, and you'll be holding for longer periods of time. We always say, hold it, hold it. So when you move into the lightness of the heart, you move into joy, you move into the fifth dimension, you move into a reality or experience where you see things as if heaven on earth with rose-colored glasses, and you're there. Hold it. Hold that frequency. And the more of you that are holding it for longer periods of time, the more it cracks open. It's like a portal that's opening and expanding until it becomes the new vibration, which becomes the collective human experience. And that is what you're all moving toward. And those beings that many of you think of as extinct and the beautiful butterflies, they've already surpassed you. They're already in the fifth dimension.
Beautiful. That's so lovely to hear. What a uplifting thing. And so throughout all of this, Raphael, you kind of talked about taking that time to really have intention, to go into the heart, to be with yourself, to be kind of disciplined with setting boundaries and things like that. And I talk to so many people, and myself, I struggle with this as well, of wanting to do that, but struggling to have the devotion, to have the commitment to them, to their practice, to going into their heart daily, to doing the work. What recommendation do you have to people who want to commit and want to be devoted, but seem to struggle to maintain that commitment and devotion for more than a couple of weeks or months?
Well, you must unify. You're all doing it in your little separate dwellings, trying so hard to get it done, and then you're distracted by your technology or your phone or something you think you have to do or whatever it may be. But you're separated. You have to unify. Now we recognize that you've been separated even more during your virus and all these things, but you have to come together, whether you do it physically, which is ideal, or you collectively have a buddy. You need a buddy system. It's like going to camp. You need somebody to get up with you, right? If you're going to exercise and say, hey, I'll take that run with you in the morning. And if you know they're waiting on you, you're more likely to do it. So you need to come together in community and be accountable for one another and each other and to self. And this will support you. And this community here is the perfect place. You can reach out to one another and say, hey, will you keep me on track? Because you're collectively, you have to recognize that you aren't separate, and that in your willingness to do this and to take the time to intend and to raise your frequency, and another on the call and you partner up to do it, that not only are you helping yourself, you're helping them, but you're helping the collective move into the fifth dimension. You're helping the animals and the water. You're helping everything, the children and the grandchildren to come. You're helping the trees and the forest and the flowers and the bees and the dolphins and the ocean and the water and the whales. You're helping everything. And so it's not just about you. And so when you realize that, and you partner with another, it will be supportive. And of course, you know how we feel about the black box. It's the grand distraction.
Hmm. Well, thank you, Raphael. And I've been off doing magical mornings for a little bit, but I think I'm inspired to get started tomorrow, even if it is on the black box. So anybody listening, if you want to do magical mornings tomorrow, I'm going to do it on Instagram Live. So I'll be there 9:30 a.m. I'll see you there. But anyway, thank you, Raphael. That was lovely.
You're welcome. There is much love for all of you, and do not despair or worry or fret about things. And know that it is all actually in perfect divine timing, and that it is one of infinite lifetimes on a magical journey, and that you can choose through your free will the intent of your choice in your life. Get out paper and pen and sit down and decide, what do you want the rest of your years to be like? Where do you want to go? What do you want to see? Who do you want to be? Who are you? How do you want to contribute to the world? And what are you willing to do in order for you to be and to express the greatest aspect, the truth and the divine power of who you are? Take responsibility and action, and do it today. Do not wait for something outside of yourself to make it better, or that someone else is going to fix it for you, or that something that you look at or listen to or read has the answers. The answers are within, and the greatest tool that you have is a willingness to sit in stillness in meditation. For all the things and the time that you spend trying to figure things out, just 10 to 15 minutes in stillness, the doorways will start to open, and that in which you're searching for is right there inside. Many blessings, much love, and good day.
Good day.